our panel tonight. First off, we've got the awesome Southeast wrestler. He's been a co-host for a very long time. The incredible Huck, Will Huckabee. Brother Huck, I knew you'd come.
Man, it's kind of bittersweet, man. This is a bittersweet moment for me. But I'm still excited, still ready to do tonight's show and stuff, man. But I'm starting to get a little tear in my eye.
All right, well, save it for the end. Also on the panel with us tonight, our favorite guest, occasional guest host, most requested guest that we've ever had on here, the franchise Troy Miller. Troy, how are you this evening?
Hey guys, how's it going? The franchise is in the building. I just want to say, there's an old saying that goes, all good things must come to an end. It's a sad moment tonight, but you know what? I have a feeling that something good's going to come out of this.
Well, something good is going to come out of this. I'm going to give our listeners a little bit of history and what the future is going to hold. So, our executive producer, the Prophet Rick Craig, had started a podcast called PWO Live, Pro Wrestling Obsession Live. He'd been doing it for a while with a series of guest hosts and panelists and doing occasional interviews. He asked me to join that show, so I helped out and did that a few times with him. Had a lot of fun. He decided that he was wanting to change up the format a little bit and do more interview segments and kind of rebrand it and make it a little more professional. Instead of having 5 or 6 voices talking all at the same time about current events and wrestling, that he wanted to do more interviews and give some better analysis. So he and I started the Undisputed Wrestling Show 3.5 years ago. We were making some great episodes and decided to see if we could get on with AngryMarks.com, because the Angry Marks Podcast Network is the best out there, and they've got great infrastructure. And talked with Stevie J over the internets, and I'd known Stevie J for a few years at that point. He gave it a listen and said, yes, it's great. So we got hooked up with Angry Marks Podcast Network. Well, one of the great things about joining the Angry Marks Podcast Network, we got to be helped out tremendously by our on-air producer, Killa Kev, and it's just been great. And Killa Kev, thank you so much for helping us out over these last few years. You don't get as much credit as you deserve. You are amazing at what you do, and between work commitments, family commitments, and helping us out, you're just a great guy, and we really appreciate it.
Well, thank you, Zane. I very much appreciate that. It has been an absolute honor to work with Rick and Zane and everybody that we've had as hosts on the show over the last couple of years, and really bringing the Undisputed Wrestling Show over to the Angry Parks. Wow, I just pulled an Angry Tenzai there. Bringing the Undisputed Wrestling Show over to the Angry Marks Podcast Network really did kind of up our game, because the number of guests and the quality of the guests that Rick and yourself and everybody helped to bring into the show in the last couple of years has just been absolutely amazing. And I'll be quite honest, neither me nor Stevie could have been able to do that on our own. Everybody here that has been involved, has some kind of foot in the wrestling door. They've got contacts. They're out there every week talking with everybody in ways and in conversations in days and nights that just me and Stevie just don't have time for, don't have the ability to reach out and do like you guys have done. So Undisputed Wrestling Show has definitely been a jewel in our crown for sure.
Well, thank you so much. So shortly after we joined the Angry Marks Podcast Network, we interviewed a young wrestler from North Carolina named Will Huckabee, and so great on the show, we invited him to be a co-host. And so that lent us further credibility, both with our listeners and our trying to book guests, because we had a veteran in the ring with us to help us out. Now, he's been called Scud. He's been called the Southern Gentleman. I'd like to prefer to call him Huck. Will Huckabee, thank you so much for joining our show and giving us that credibility. And, you know, during the interviews, coming up with questions that I and the Prophet would never have thought of. And really insightful things. So thank you so much, Will.
Yeah, you know what? Thank you, Zay. I don't know. I actually went back this weekend while I was on the road, and I listened to that interview. And do you remember what I said to you guys when I actually? Because what happened was Rick was looking for guests, and I answered, you know, the cattle call, I guess you would call it, and stuff, to be a guest in the show. And Rick contacted me about, you know, being a guest and everything, and he was like, you know, do you think it'll be exciting? And I was just like, hey, this is gonna be like Piper's Pit and the barbershop, like, it's something else all rolled into one. I was like, this is gonna probably be like the craziest, wildest show you've ever fucking had, all rolled into one. You remember that, Zane?
Yes.
and I like to think that I didn't disappoint. I like to think that you know, that was a really great interview. I felt like it was a really great interview, and not too soon after that, you guys asked me to be a part of the show, man, and I couldn't thank you or Rick enough for asking me to be a host on this show. It's like, as much as you say I came up with really good questions for guests that you and Rick really wouldn't have came up with, I've learned so much about being a podcaster, or not so much a podcaster, but just a journalist, and talking to people, and being able to talk to people from different walks of life and stuff. And as much as I've contributed to this show, I would like to think that you guys have mentored me and made me such a better person and a better wrestler.
Well, that's quite a compliment. Thank you so much. I know we've only met, once in real life, but I consider you a true friend.
Yes, and that's because, you know, like I always say, man, the state of Indiana is afraid to book me. Nobody, and then the other time that it was a chance for us to meet each other and stuff, I broke down in West Virginia, so, you know, and ever since then, but I'm still, you know, still struggling, I'm gonna make my way back up to Indiana, so.
Well, we obviously we'd love to have you again. So, timeline further down, we we decided that Rick decided that he didn't want to be on air any longer, work more in the capacity of executive producer, obviously booking us great guests. Forever indebted to the Prophet for that. And so we decided to have ring veteran, trainer, all-around great guy, Cue Ball Carmichael, come on the show. And at that time, we also invited Drew Skills on, which Drew Skills is one of my favorites. Troy, can you talk just a little bit about the rivalry you and Drew Skills had going into that, about how many times you've both been featured on the show?
Well, I had been asked several times to be a guest on the show. You know, some things would come up where guests would have to cancel or wouldn't be able to make it on, and you guys would be like, hey, you want to come on the show? And of course, anytime that I get a chance to talk wrestling, I'm all for it. So it was just, you know, one of them things where, yeah, I'll come on the show. Drew Skills, same thing. He'd come on the show, and, you know, he'd get a little. Drew has a big head, if you guys don't know that. I'm going to break a little kayfabe here, but Drew really thinks highly of himself. So, I mean, when he got on the show, he's like, you know, I've been on the show more times than you have. You know, he likes to, you know, rub salt in the wound, and he thinks he's got one over on me. But, you know, I think I have had the most appearances out of anybody on the show. So much so that the only way that Drew Skills could have beat me was to become a host, so he could be on the show himself, because I mean, Drew likes to talk about himself, so if he has a chance to get on the show and talk about himself, that's what he's going to do.
Oh, and trust me, Troy. Every time Drew got on the show, it was definitely the Drew Skills show. No matter who the guest was, some kind of way it would come back to Drew Skills and how he's been the Heroes and Legends champ for I don't know how many years.
Well, that's because he won't put anybody over.
Well, so basically the show is ending because of work and family commitments for the Prophet. He has decided that he's no longer going to be able to participate in the show. And without the Prophet, there would be no Undisputed Wrestling show. I forgot to mention, Sign Guy, who's going to be on in a little while, another great addition to our staff and our panelists. Love Sign Guy, always a unique and interesting take, and veteran in the business for a long time. So again, awesome questions and being able to help us out with guests. So as I was saying, the Prophet can no longer make a commitment to the Undisputed Wrestling show, and without the Prophet, we can't continue the Undisputed Wrestling show. So the good news is, starting on November 1st, Sign Guy, Huck, and myself, along with Killer Kev, will be debuting a new series, a new show called Wrestling Nerdcast. So since I'm a wrestling nerd, we're all nerds about something, and we all love this crazy sport of pro wrestling. We're going to be starting the Wrestling Nerdcast. It's not going to be a complete copy of the Undisputed Wrestling show, but it's going to be either an evolution or a devolution of it. So it should be a lot of fun. November 1st, right here on the Angry Marks Podcast Network. And our first guest, appropriately enough for the Wrestling Nerdcast, is going to be former WWF Primetime on the USA Network, a staple on there, Bobby Heenan's co-host on the Bobby Heenan Show. It's going to be Jameson joining us for that first night. So I believe that we have another caller in for the final deletion of the Undisputed Wrestling show. Brother Skills, I knew you'd come.
What's up, Dan Paisley?
What's going on? I just gave our listeners a rundown of kind of the history of the Undisputed Wrestling show. You are on with myself, Huck, and the franchise Troy Miller, and we haven't been talking too bad about you so far.
Well, with Huck on the line, that's hard to believe.
No, Troy was talking a little bit more drunk than I was, obviously. And Troy, isn't it something that as soon as we bring up Drew Skills, he happens to call in? Isn't that something he just couldn't let us have our moment, huh, Troy?
No. I mean, he might as well talk about himself and save us from doing it. So.
Well, of course.
Well, we got Troy's take on the rivalry that you guys had about being frequent guests on the show. Do you have anything? I know you didn't listen to him. Do you have anything to say to Troy about how many times each of you guys have been on the show?
I don't really. I mean, I'm just happy that I had found the show and was on the show and got to be a fan of the show. I listened way back when it was Zane and Rick Craig, and there may or may not have been some other guy. I'm not sure, but he didn't really contribute too much. But Zane was awesome. Rick was awesome. It was great. I got to hear Troy on there several times, and it was just a great show, man. I was really happy and honored to be a part of it.
Well, and I'll give our listeners a little bit of history about how you joined this show. We had seen each other at WCWO, and I'd met you several times, had pictures taken with you, bought your merchandise, but we didn't really know each other that well. And so I saw you at WCWO, and you said, "Oh man, I want to get in the podcasting game. I listen to podcasts when I'm on the road. I like your show. How can I get involved in it?" I said, "Well, there might be an opening for you." And a couple weeks later, you were a co-host with us. So thank you so much, Drew, for helping us out so much. Well,
man, I really appreciate that. And like I said, it was my pleasure. always a fan of the show and glad that I could become a part of it and contribute just a little bit to it.
Well, and when your schedule frees up, you definitely are invited to be part of the new show, the Wrestling Nerdcast, starting on November 1st with our first guest, Jameson, which will be right here on the Angry Marks Podcast Network every Tuesday night. Let's get to some business. Let's stop reminiscing right now. Let's pick it up some business. Now, Troy and Drew are both going to be this weekend, the huge show in Fort Wayne, Indiana, Heroes and Legends. Drew, where is that taking place in Fort Wayne?
That's going to be at the War Museum or War Coliseum. It's a huge venue. There's 7,000 seats, and from what I hear, we're going to come real close to selling that bad boy out. So, I think Troy, what is it the War? What's it called exactly?
Allen County War Memorial.
There it is. It's a huge venue, great place. We started off Heroes and Legends at the ice place there, and our first show we drew about 1,800, real close to 2,000, and now we're getting real close to packing out a $7,000 or 7,000 seat capacity. So the Heroes and Legends is growing leaps and bounds. It's my favorite show each year. I was going to put it on Facebook. I'll go ahead and say it here first, an exclusive. But, a very wise meme once said that, not everybody who's famous is talented. And unfortunately, not everyone who's talented becomes famous. And Heroes and Legends is my opportunity. It used to be 4 or 5 times a year, but now a couple times a year to go out and go out and prove that I can boogie with the best of them. So I really look forward to it. Troy's been killing it at Heroes and Legends too, and it's just going to be a great event Saturday.
I think this is going to be the biggest one yet, to be honest. And I just can't wait. All kidding aside, all joking aside, I really cannot wait for Drew Skills and Damian Sandow. I mean, I don't think anybody could have held the title like Drew has held it. The way he's carried it, the way, he's just the center of the promotion. When people think of Heroes and Legends Wrestling, they think of Drew Skills. And to have somebody represent the company like Drew, it's been awesome to watch him get in there with some of the best guys, and time in, time out, win, lose, or draw, some way, he finds a way to walk out with the belt. And, you got to give props to Drew Skills for that.
Oh, definitely.
Hold on, Zay. Hold on, I got to say something real quick. Troy,
we knew you would.
Hold on. All that stuff that Troy said was so nice and politically correct. Now, not 5 minutes ago, Drew, I'm going to just go ahead and call him out. Not 5 minutes ago, we were talking about you being the Heroes and Legends champion. And Troy may or may not, I'm not going to call him out all the way, but he may or may not have said the only reason why you're the Heroes and Legends champ is because you had pulled a Hulk Hogan and you refused to put anybody over.
I said all joking aside. Got to give the man his due.
Now, is that going to be the case again this time, Drew? You look at Damian Sandow, he's like, I'm not putting this guy over.
Here's the thing, man. Here's the thing. In December, it's 4 years. You think I'm going to miss a 4-year milestone?
I knew it. I knew it.
December marks 4 years. I am the longest reigning professional wrestling heavyweight champion in the business today. And I plan on breaking records, man. I've already beat Punk's record. I've already passed a couple of Hogan's runs. I'm coming on Backlund and San Martino.
I don't know, man. I think Dick Kincaid has you beat as the NWA Smoky Mountain Southeastern champion. I think his reign is moving in on 5 years, man.
I don't know. I heard about that one. I think he's a little shorter than that, man. I think I got him.
Well, I'm going to do some research.
I have heard about that one.
But I'm going to do some research and stuff, man, because I think him and Chase Owens are supposed to be going 90 minutes. They're doing a 90-minute match, man. A 90-minute Iron Man match, I think. So I'll find out because I'm going to beat up on Jason Kincaid this Friday. So while I'm beating him up, I'll ask him who's that longer champion, you or him.
Right on.
So Troy had mentioned your opponent, Damian Sandow, also known as Aaron Rex, currently in TNA. And if he's not currently on TV, then he just gave up the TNA Grand Championship. He was the first TNA Grand Champion. So what do you look for in this match?
Man, Damian Sandow, whatever you want to call him, Aaron Stevens, if you want to go back even a little further, he's a veteran. He's been around for a very long time. He's been on the top level for a very long time. And I just look for, him to bring it. And, going into these type of matches, you just got to worry about what my game plan is and not worry so much about what his game plan is. I just got to be the best me I can be. And I know if I'm the best me that I can be, that I can hang with anybody. So I'm really looking forward to it, man. Like I said, I use these type of things to test myself, to see where I'm at. And, I couldn't ask for a better opponent in Damian. He's done so much and gotten over, without, sometimes being put behind the 8-ball. The guy's found a way to the cream rises to the top. He's been able to do that. So, I'm really looking forward to it.
Awesome. And Troy, I mentioned that Sandow Aaron Rex was the first TNA Grand Champion. Troy, you are the very first Heroes and Legends Cruiserweight Champion. Now you did lose that at the last event, but you're going to be taking on quite the interesting opponent this coming weekend.
That's correct. It will be Shockwave the Robot. Now, people may or may not know who he is, but the dude has quite the extensive career. He's made a name for himself in Japan, and he's got a unique gimmick. He's very different. It's a different style of match that I'm used to, but victory over Shockwave will put me back in title contention, I'm sure. And to go along with something that Drew did say, that's one thing about the Heroes and Legends show. It's pretty much the barometer for the business. You get a chance to wrestle some guys that, the who's who of the business have been in Heroes and Legends. And if you can get in there and you can showcase what you have against the very best performers, people that have done this for a living, people that have been on worldwide national television, they made a living at this, and they have a name. And if you can go in there and you can compete on their level, that gauges where you're at in the business. And to be successful on that level, like I have been and like Drew currently is, it's a feather in your cap, and it's something you can hang your hat on and say, you know what? You could be right there with them. You're just one phone call away from having your life changed.
Well, and you had a series of matches versus Hacksaw Jim Duggan involved with Heroes and Legends. Who are some of the others that you've taken on at Heroes and Legends in the past?
There's been Hacksaw. There's been the franchise Shane Douglas, Buff Bagwell. I've taken on Carlito. I've been in the ring with Sugar Dunkerton, who's now the Heroes and Legends Cruiserweight champ. It's been a who's who of just top-rate talent. And, when you can, like I said, when you can compete with those guys at a high level and you can just hang with them. Even if I never get the call, if I never get a contract, I'm north of 40 now, so that's probably not going to happen. It's never been something that I've really pushed for. I've always just been happy being an independent wrestler. That's where I feel most at home. It's what I love. I love independent wrestling. So I've never really tried or went down that avenue. I never took the steps to further my career. But, just looking back on the things that I have accomplished and the things that I have done and the name that I made for myself, that's enough for me. It's just, if I know that I have the ability and I know that, other people that I've been in the ring with confirm that fact that, you have what it takes. That is a stamp of approval. That seals the deal for me. That's all that I need. That's all that I need to know.
Well, Huck, Troy just brought up our friend Buff Bagwell, and He was always been one of my favorite guests on the Undisputed Wrestling Show. We've had him on a couple times. I remember when we asked him what he expected out of the franchise Troy Miller. He said, "Who? That guy doesn't have the Q rating that I have." Do you remember that, Huck?
Yes, I do remember that. Matter of fact, I remember laughing probably as hard as I've ever laughed before when he made that statement.
I think everybody did.
It was pretty funny.
When Troy Miller walks into Walmart, not everybody turns around and stares at him like they do me. Like that was just some funny stuff. Drew, over the past couple years that you've been on the Undisputed Wrestling Show, what have been some of your favorite moments that we've had?
Man, there've been so many of them. Talking to legends and, people that I've looked up to in the business and, never actually, there's so many people, that I've been so fortunate to have been on shows with and worked with and things of that nature. But the Undisputed Wrestling Show has given me an opportunity to talk to some people that I haven't been able to run across. And, and even some that I have, guys like Rip Rogers that I've seen several times. He was such a great guest on the Undisputed Wrestling Show. Had such a great time talking to him on there. The Samoans being on and talking to them and listening to them talk about the family and the dynasty and things of that nature. Just being able to talk to those people, man, that, you don't get to interact with on a regular basis.
Well, who had more curse words in our interview, Rip Rogers or Steve Cox?
I'm going to still say that Rip Rogers holds the record for like 95 F-bombs in a 45-minute interview. I think that Rip Rogers is the reason why our show went from, PG-14 to a straight rated R show. Matter of fact, I can definitely say that after the Rip Rogers interview, we basically started telling guests they could say whatever they wanted to say, because there was not going to be anything that we had ever heard, that we hadn't heard before.
Well, hey, Zane, I hate to interrupt, but guys, I got to jump off here. I just had a little bit of a time and need to get on here and talk to you guys. Huck, Zane, it's been a blast. Want to thank Rick. Want to thank Kev. You guys are great, man. You guys are awesome. Troy, I'll see you Saturday. And thanks to all the fans who listened and hit me on different messages and told me how you love the show. You guys are great, man. I'll talk to you guys later.
All right. Best of luck to you against Aaron Rex, a.k.a. Damian Sandow this week for the H&L Heavyweight Championship.
Thanks, Zane.
And quick, get me blackballed in Indiana.
Well, while we're still talking about heroes and legends, let's give a quick rundown of some of the guests scheduled to appear. Ryback, and he's come out with a video saying that he's going to have a match, but he won't say who against. So that should be interesting. Lex Luger, one of my good friends, a former guest of the show. Raven, who I'm a huge fan of, and hopefully he will be able to book him for Wrestling Nerdcast coming up. The former Hornswoggle, now he just goes by Swoggle, is going to be there. 2016 WWE Hall of Famer, The Godfather. Really wish they would have booked Papa Shango, but they've got The Godfather. Former guest Carlito is going to be on there. Dutch Mantel, who I met recently. Former guest Nikita Koloff. Former guest Ricardo Rodriguez. Vicky Guerrero is going to be the general manager that night. Former guest WCW ring announcer Gary Michael Capetta. Former guest Fred Ottman, who was better known as Shockmaster, Typhoon, or Tugboat. Marty Jannetty is going to be there. Sugar D, who's a former guest of ours. Jake Oman, former guest. Jack Thriller. Scotty Young. The Brooklyn Brawler. Former guest Rod Street. Obviously, one of our favorites, Troy Miller, with his beautiful wife, Miss E. Liz, taking on Shockwave the Robot. Former guests Tracy Smothers and Bobby Fulton, taking on former guest Anthony Toatelli and his partner Sean Schultz, and also taking on legendary former for the H&L Women's Championship, Randy West, who's been a guest on here, taking on Sybil Starr. And finally, into the card that I see, former guest Congo Kong versus former guest Brutalicious Nick Cutler. So lots of undisputed folks being represented there. Should be a great card. That is coming up Saturday, October 22nd. Big fan fest. You can get more information at heroesandlegendswrestling.com. Now, Troy, what's your favorite part of the Heroes and Legends? Is it actually the wrestling, or is it the chance to meet with fans during the fan fest?
I think the fan fest is my favorite part. I mean, let's be honest, it's usually the biggest crowd of the year that we get to perform in front of. So that's cool, and it's cool to meet the people that come out and support independent wrestling. Sure, most of them are there to see the bigger name guys, but we, throughout the course of the years, have created our own little followings, and, the people see us in the same light as they see the other stars, and it's a pretty good feeling, I gotta say.
Oh, that's awesome. Should be a great time. Now, is there anyone, I know that you've been in the business, are we at 25 years now?
Almost 27.
Almost 27 years. So you're kind of immune to the mark-out moments, but is there anybody there that you especially want to meet yourself?
Well, let's step back a couple. I am a mark. You know what? I love the business. I've been a fan of it ever since I was a kid. Even though it seems like nowadays I complain more about the business than I find any enjoyment out of it, but I still watch it. And I still love it. I love to be a part of it. And when you get to, hang out and converse with the guys that you watch on TV do it at a high level, I'm going to pop. Ryback, who's not going to mark out for Ryback?
Mm-hmm.
Who's not going to? Vicky Guerrero. I'm totally going to mark out for Vicky Guerrero. That's something, too, that I usually, if I'm hanging out in the back with the guys and stuff, I'm not afraid to ask for a picture. Some guys, they won't do it, and they think, oh, look at him, he's being a mark. But you know what? I'm hanging out with these people, and we're having a good time, and why not take a picture with them? That's just, I'm a fan, so that's what I'm going to do.
I hate to interrupt, but the last Heroes and Legends event, Bobby Fulton sent me back to the locker room to grab his WWE encyclopedia for me to ask for people's autographs for him because he was busy dealing with meeting fans. So if Bobby Fulton, who's been around the business for so long, isn't afraid to ask people for their autograph or take pictures, then nobody should.